Yo, yo, yo. Mic should be working. Looks all to be fine. Alright. Welcome everyone. Today FC Chat is a German edition, yeah. But don't worry guys, we're not gonna talk in German here. I think it would actually be weird if we did. I mean, for both of us. But so obviously today's guest, Killah Bee, he should be a big enough name so basically everyone knows about him. But let me explain anyway. Or let me introduce him a little bit at least. He was on the CSM. You dropped off the CSM recently.
Yes.
But you almost completed the full term, I would say, right? I think
I
in
completed
the end.
the first term, yes, but I
Actually,
only stuck around. Yeah, so one full term and then like 3 months into the second.
Oh yeah, I forgot exactly. You were actually a full term there. All right. So you were on the CSM, and therefore I should also mention there might be stuff where you might have to say like, nope, it's NDA or whatever. I don't think there will be any of that, but you know, in that case, just say NDA and we just move on, right? Because obviously we don't want to get banned, do we? But yeah, we have been rivals in a way for quite a while actually, right? PANFAM in it has always been like, I think back in the day you were in PL before. There was always that little bit of rivalry going on in PL and in it. You know, sometimes more, sometimes less, but there was always something going on. I mean, ever since Shadow wasn't playing anymore, that's how I feel at least. When Shadow quit, that kind of started a little bit. But you've always been very like straightforward, no bullshitting, very respectful and stuff, and I appreciate that. There's always like, when there's rivalries, even if it's a fucking spaceship game, it can get a little nasty and shit. But I don't remember you ever talking shit. Like I don't think anyone on the Imperium side or so remembers you as being a massive shit talker, which is great. And you have been the main FC for, I would say, for PANFAM for quite a while. How long have you been main FC for PANFAM? Probably last 2-7
I would
years.
say that I started kind of running stuff in PANFAM and did campaigns with the beginning of World War B. So like early 2016, I started. Basically, early 2016 was when I convinced the PL leadership to deploy towards the north and start pushing harder on the CFC back then. And that was basically my first campaign in the PANFAM. I was a campaign commander before that in Uli Secunda, but they weren't really, obviously, they weren't part of PANFAM, right? So in PANFAM, it started with World War B.
Yeah, you're right, actually. I mean, in my head, it was all, it's not as far away, but yeah, that was 2016 already.
Yeah.
Has always been already been a while. And you know what? I think you were the one of the very few FCs that quickly adapted to like our Bush doctrines quite well, and I always respected that one. I know we fought a couple times, with Ravens, with Snatch, maybe, I'm not sure. You were in PL at the time. I think when we were flying Snatch, we were fighting NC mostly. But I think we fought a few times, maybe. And then obviously with Stukas too. And I remember you guys adapting quite well, actually. It didn't seem to be that hard, right? Because if you know what you're doing, it's actually not that crazy. But yeah. So yeah, I always had a lot of respect for that. And yeah. I mean, how many wars did we actually fight in together, or not together, against each other, right?
So I remember when I joined PL in late 2015 or mid 2015, you guys were deployed to GTEC O in Curse, right? And we were staging in Curse as well. So we definitely had some skirmishes back then, but I don't think they were very big. And then you guys went to Syndicate as well to do the NC stuff, and I was in PL and we stayed down in Curse. So then we kind of stopped. And then obviously any kind of Imperium / CFC war that we've been involved in and you guys were involved in, we've been fighting more or less.
Yeah, that's all.
So a couple.
Yeah, our traditional home station or home staging is in G-O actually, and you guys were in HLW. And I remember
Yeah.
those times it was also Ishtar Online to a degree still, wasn't it? Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. It was like late. It was like the later stages of Tengu and Ishtar Online.
Yeah, you know what? I kinda enjoyed Ishtar Online. Like I really did. I
I
thought it
like the
was
Shield Ishtars as well. They were really cancer, but they were one of those doctrines where if you knew how to FC them, you could really just own. And if you were not good at FCing them, you would get owned. And I like those kind of doctrines because it really shows the difference between a good and a bad FC. That's why I
yeah.
also kind of like Munins, because like at the moment it's still kind of a Munin meta, and there's a lot of fights going on, especially, or there were a couple of fights with us versus GOTG. And there's a very clear difference in FCing. Like you can see when there was a good FC on our side, we won, and then if it wasn't such a good FC on our side and a better FC on their side, then they won, because it really, you have to know how to fight Munins versus Munins, right? You have to know what to do. And it was the same in Ishtar versus Ishtar. There was very specific counters, and it was it was definitely something where you could show that you are a better FC than your opponent. And that's kind of my motivation to play the game, or it has been my motivation to play the game for a long time. So that was, I always like when it's a meta where you can basically show that you're better than the other FC. I don't particularly care about winning some timer necessarily. I just want to be better than the other guy, basically. I want to compete with the other best FCs of the game. And I want to fly doctrines where I can show or try or test if I'm better than the other guy, right? And a lot of doctrines in between Ishtars and now Munins were not like that, where it's really just about who has the most dudes. Like Feroxes, for example. Like there's not much you can do in a Ferox versus Ferox that makes you better than the other guy. At the end of the day, whoever has more Feroxes wins, right? Most of the time, anyways. Obviously, you can still beat a really bad FC if you have less Feroxes, but it's not very often that happens.
Yeah, I mean, you could make the same argument for Munins. Like, what does it? What's the difference in your opinion between like Munins versus Munins? Let's say 100 versus 100. You have Munins versus Munins. Why is that more skill based than Ishtar's? Sorry, Ferox's versus Ferox's.
Because like there's a very clear example of when you know like the procedure to fight Munins in Munins is very straightforward. What you want to do is whoever kills the enemy logis first wins, right? And I've been mentoring some FCs in NC dot. Well, not very recently, but I've been, watching the FC chats and then throwing in my occasional comment every now and then. And a lot of our newer FCs, for example, when they start to fight Munins versus Munins, they have fairly similar numbers. They start trying to shoot Munins at first, or maybe they shoot link ships or something when they don't have the critical mass to volley that, right? And it's always a case of who kills the enemy logis first. Then you have to know which ammo to load. A lot of newer FCs make the wrong ammo choice. They don't load the right type of ammo in a Munin versus Munin fight. And then it's also a lot about positioning. If you manage to get on top of the enemy logi with your Munins, like within 30, and you can just load fusion and go through semis like a hot knife through butter, then you're going to win the fight almost guaranteed. But if you have good hyena pilots, if you have with webs, right? If you have good webbing pilots, if you know how to anchor your fleet, and if your logi anchor knows how to anchor the logis, you can really make a difference. And a lot of newer, younger FCs that are not as skilled in the game, they don't know how to set up so they can win a fight like that.
Well, so I'm actually a horrible Mun FC probably because I never fly Munins. I maybe took them out twice. I'm not excited about flying them, but I totally see the potential. There's way more choices you have to make as an FC, which makes it way more interesting. Like also gives more room for hostile FCs to make mistakes, right? But yeah, yeah, you make it sound way more interesting than I thought.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah,
that's
and then
the thing.
Ishtar's.
I didn't think of it that way before I started trying to explain it to new FCs, right? Because for me in my head, it was like, that's just how you
Yeah,
fight. Like, it happens automatically. But when you try to break it down to a person that's trying to learn to FC, you have to really think, okay, so what do you break it down to? And then I really did it in my head, kind of like what matters in a fight like Munins v Munins. And then you break it down and you write it down, and it actually makes it sound really interesting, right? But for like experienced FCs, they don't think about any of that. They just do it, right? But like new FCs, they have to learn it, so they have to kind of have a checklist. Okay, this is what I have to do. But I would agree also, like at a certain scale, when the enemy has like 30 more units than you do, then there's not a lot you can do, even if you FC way better to win. But there's a certain like difference that you can still do by just being better than the opponent.
Yeah, so that's always the thing. You have to make the choice. Like there's no um, perfect way of doing it that works every time. You know? Because the fleet size might be different. Maybe they bring like an enormous amount of logis, and you have so much DPS that it may be not even viable to go for logis first, or whatever. Like there might be, So there's not this like easy peasy checklist, but every fight is different.
I
And
always tell the new FCs when we like go and they like, oh, I want to start FCing. The first thing I tell them is 90% of the fights in EVE are decided before the actual fight begins, right? Because it's all about what does my enemy have in terms of fleet comp, what do I have, who has more, who has a bad phone, can I drop caps, that like all these circumstances, all these like environmental things, those most of the time decide the fight. The actual like combat piloting skill factor has gotten lower and lower over the last couple of years with just the way the CCP changed the game. There's not a lot of outskilling your opponent anymore. Back in the day when, PL, like even before I joined PL became famous for A, dropping caps everywhere, and B, being able to beat insane number, like winning fights where the enemy has an insane number advantage. And it was also the same for the Black Legion, the original Black Legion back in 2012-13. I was actually in Black Legion during its prime time. And one of the things that impressed me about the most about ELO back then was that we had a like 60-man Munin fleet or something, right? 60, 70-man Munin fleet. And we were fighting, I think it was like a full fleet of Hurricanes from AFCON, and we beat them. We won a fight where it was like 80 Munins versus 256 Hurricanes, right? And we
that's
won
the dream.
because he piloted it better, because the Hurricanes wouldn't hit us and we would kill them. And that kind of stuff just doesn't exist in EVE anymore. It just doesn't exist. And that's very unfortunate. But there's still, like I said, a little bit of that if you look at it at a very small scale, like and I not mean small scale of fight, but I mean on the like, if you really dive deep into what a fight is made of, basically.
Did you already FC at the time when you were in Black Legion, or did you just fly
No,
as
no, I was a Lion member, and I started seeing in Nully a little bit. I started seeing in Evoke, but Evoke was already dead, so that was like in late 2013. I started seeing an Evoke, and then I went to Nully, and then because ProGod pulled a ProGod, I was kind of just thrown into the cold water, because back then we were part of the N3, right? And Stainwagon was pushing into Esoteria from Stain, and we were basically the N3 decided, look, Nully, you're going to be in charge of defending Esoteria from Stainwagon. And Progod made this huge post about our deployment to defend our homelands, blah, blah, blah. Then we deployed to Esoteria to defend it, and then he went AFK. And then I had to take over because there was nobody else to do it. And then me and Nidusbar, who still plays, as you know, obviously these days. That's why we're friends. That's why I joined Shiva after I left PL. Because Nidus and I, we kind of grew up together in Nully. As a team, like we both ran the campaign together back then in 2014, and I always did the subcap fleets, and he did like a lot of bombing. Back then, bombing was really good because there were no defenders, no bushas, and shit like that. So we did like a really strong combination of me running subcap doctrines and then him supporting me with bombers, and we did really, really well against Stainwagon back then.
I always said like the multi-fleet approach is the right approach, really, right? Not being one-dimensional. If you form against someone, just bring in one fleet. It's probably not the right way, you know. If you can bring maybe a smaller fleet, but then on top of it a couple bombers, on top of it like whatever, smart bomb stuff or whatever, right? Just to give it that extra tool. It's usually pretty good, but you need that extra FC for it too, right? That's usually where it's where it stops. For example, when we were flying Snatch all day, we didn't have that many Snatch FCs though. Not Snatch, but Stukas. Or Snatch too, right? Not a lot of people are comfortable with flying them too much. And then taking out a main fleet and then having another FC being comfortable with Stukas or Snatch, that was always a little bit of a struggle, because like usually it was just me flying those. Right? Having that good, FC bro is always great. But since you said you started FCing a little later, like that's Elo, then he's probably a little bit of inspiration then for you, huh?
Who? Elo? Yeah, very much. Elo made me want to become an FC. Basically, that's why I was super excited. I actually met Elo the first time and the only time, sadly, in I think it was FanFest 2018 or 2017. I can't remember exactly. And yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, I still remember I still remember the fleet where I decided I wanted to become an FC. There was like this. This was an op. I don't remember what the op was about, but what I do remember is that we basically Elo knew everything that our opponents were going to do before they did it. He had perfect intel on them. He knew exactly which gate they were taking. He knew exactly where they were going. And today that's pretty basic, pretty standard for me as well, because I have all the intel. I can see everything. But as a line member back then, this fascinated me so much. I was like, how can this fleet commander know everything that our enemy is going to do before they even do it? I didn't understand all of that back then because I was just a regular guy, right? I pressed F1, that's all I did. And that really made me, I said like, oh man, I want to be that kind of guy one day. I want to have like perfect intel on my opponent. I want to drop supers on somebody or something like that. It was really like a little kid dreaming. And back then, that was 2012. So that's 8 years ago. I was, well, I guess I was 16, 15, 16 back then. But, I was a teenager and I kind of looked up to him. So it was kind of fun.
That's interesting. Like, I don't remember me having that one day or whatever where thought to myself like I want to be an FC. For me, it just like I kind of you know developed into it, and that's usually the story I hear from other FCs that they're like, oh yeah, well we did stuff. I actually you said something similar. Like so that was an inspiration, but then
Yes.
Progor was
Something
missing
happened.
in that war, and then you were forced into this role basically, right? You had to fill that gap, and
Yes,
that's yeah.
that was when
So
I
that's
was
the
forced to
causation.
run when I was forced to run a large campaign then, right? The first time actually FC the fleet was in Evoke, and I still remember as well because we were sitting on comms and I was like a 6 or 7 or 8 man vagabond gang or something. Like there was a small gang next to us staging. I think we staged in VSIG back then in Syndicate with Evoke. And they were like flying around the area. It was like this 8 man Vega gang, right? And everybody on comms, we had like 15 people on comms. So we had more people there. But all the other people just said, oh, we could form this and fight them, or we could do this and do
But
that. And
nobody did.
but nobody did. And I was like, I'm tired of everybody saying, we could do this or that. And I just did it. And that's the number two thing. I guess actually that's probably the number one thing I tell new FCs or people that ask me, Killer, how can I become an FC?
FC,
You
yeah.
have to do it. You just
Yeah.
there's no way, there's no class you can take like FCing 101 that you have to take first and then you have to become to NFC. You have to find the motivation to actually go out and do something. And unfortunately, very little people actually have that motivation. There's so many people that poke me in NC dot, for example, and be like, I want to help, I want to do more, I want to become an FC. And basically, whenever I tell them, yeah, just do it. I feel like maybe they think that I'm trolling them or something, but
I have
that's
the
at the
same
end of the
thing.
day, that's what you have to do, right? Like you just have to start doing stuff. When I ask for a Sino, do it. When I ask for a scout, do it, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how you start.
So, like, I have the same thing. I get convoed about stuff, and because I'm doing this FC chat thing now, like, maybe some people get the impression that, like, oh, I'm the super FC. Like, no, I'm not that great of an FC, really. I just like to talk about shit, and I thought it's great and stuff. I don't have all the answers. All I know is, like, no FC gets better by sitting in station. You know what I mean? And it's the exact same thing with, like, for example, Elo's thing. Like, why was he so good with Munins back when nobody was that good? Because he undocked constantly. I wasn't even there, and I know he undocked all the time in the same setup, so he knew everything about it, and he knew the problems. He whelped a few times, I'm sure, and all that stuff. But if you whelp like a 60-man Munin fleet versus like a full Hurricane fleet, I'm sure that might have happened before or whatever.
He
How
webbed our
bad is
entire
it?
super fleet 3 times or two or
Yeah,
three
there you
times,
go.
right?
And like nobody's talking about that right now, you know?
Well,
So, I mean, now we do, right? But in general, like you have to undock and do shit, and it's not, you're not getting better by sitting there thinking about it, right? But at the same time, there is this component that's super important too, is you need the room to FC. For example, I don't think being an init or an NC dot is the best way to start FCing. I really don't think so, because there's established FCs like you, like me, like Darkshines, or like, I don't know, Vince in NC. They're already FCing, so if there's like important stuff, you're not pushed like you were in Secunda, for example. There was nobody there. Everyone was just sitting around. Someone had to do it, so you're pushed in that direction. So if there's like a pro god legend around, he would have FC'd that fleet against those Vargas quickly, and you wouldn't have the chance to actually get that first experience, right? So there's some components that need to get together for someone to really like get going, I think. And yeah, I think that like it's not only like those guys that approach you and say like, oh, I want to FC, but they never really do. It's not entirely their fault. It's not like they're lazy or they just don't have the balls or whatever. I think the environment also plays a big role why they probably don't start, really, right?
Yeah, that's why we've kind of opened up our sort of, we call it FC-FAM. It's like our skirmish FC, trainee FC group, or whatever you want to call it. We basically open it up to everyone. You just have to approach somebody and you get in there, and then you can show if you want to be useful, right? And we open the doors for everybody. We don't really do background checks to people that want to join that channel, not all that much
Okay.
anyways. We just kind of invite them, and if they turn out to be useful, then that's great, and they're going to be a useful member of the FC team, right? And we've promoted lots of people that started up in FC-FAM into our real FC group lately. I think it was like 3 or 4 guys that did really well in FC-FAM and are now part of the FC team. In our alliance, having the FC tag also doesn't necessarily mean that you run all the fleets yourself. It also means that you contribute in another fundamental way, right? So, for example, if you have like scouts everywhere, also you have spies somewhere, for example, that you work really well with, all of those factors can be counted in. Also, some of our big paper pushers that do a lot of the background work, like making sure that all the contracts are stocked and making sure that all the doctrines are in place, they're also in the FC chat, so they can communicate with the FCs whatever they need. And yeah, so it's sometimes a bit confusing when you have like there's like a lot of people with the FC tag that aren't actually FCs that just kind of help the FCs out, but that are more trusted than all the people we invite into FC-FAM.
Yeah, we have a similar system, I would say. We actually went away from an open FC channel, like, so we used to have one FC channel, and then on top of that, like an FC strat channel. I'm pretty sure you've got similar stuff. Um, and then this channel, the FC channel, it just got too big. So you had like, I don't know, I think we had like 60 people in there. But like some of them are inactive, some of them are just basically doing like sign-ons and stuff like this. And it's more of like a support role. But a lot of times what I felt like with those big groups, if it's too big, a lot of people don't feel responsible anymore, you know? So everyone's like, oh yeah, he needs this and this, and he needs like all the moons scanned in wherever, right? In some constellation or whatever. Some, work done. But a lot of people would then think, well, there's 60 other people here. Like, why would I now do it? Like, I'm gonna take a break today. So I think like if a channel like that gets too big, it's not effective anymore. And we had to clean all that up. And it was actually quite a challenge that we went through this year, and we're still going through. And I think that's something we struggle with as an alliance. Is like we have different FC tiers now, but then again, you don't want to make it a personal decision. You don't want to say, okay, FC, like for example, in your case, Killah Bee decides if FC 123 is now a skirmish FC or if he's a tactical FC, which would then give him more access to SRP doctrines and la 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 la, and that could be a personal decision, and nobody can, like, our struggle was to get to a place where we can say, okay, this is based on facts. How good is the guy? How much can we trust him with our alliance assets? And do you have like a similar system, like, or like, is it all just like how you said?
Well, I mean, alliance assets are not really like not even all of the people in the FC channel have access to any alliance assets. There's like 4 people that have access to assets.
Oh yeah, wait a second. So when I mean alliance assets, I mean like bigger cap numbers, super titans, that kind of stuff. When you lose 10 titans, that's an alliance thing. Like,
Yeah, but see, that's one of those cases where like if some really new FC that just got the FC tag starts pinging for titans, somebody like me or Nidis, is gonna be like, hey, what are you doing, buddy? He's gonna like come in and ask him and then maybe support him. If it's a
Yeah.
legitimate reason, we are absolutely not above letting a new FC caps as well. There's no problem with somebody that got the FC tag recently running caps, right? But we usually ask him, what is the timer? Why are you forming caps? And then we kind of look at the intel that we have that he might not. And then we tell him, yeah, sure, looks good, you can do it. Or maybe we tell him, might be careful right now. Or maybe we go like, okay, look, well, how about you do the sub caps and I can take care of the caps, or the other way around, you know? Generally speaking, we don't really have rules on people running caps. It's a bit less organized. I kind of like in terms of like PanFam and Imperium, for example. It's not a perfect comparison, obviously, but I always tend to say that the Imperium is built a bit like the military, and PanFam is built more like a mafia, where we don't have a very set structure. It's kind of a bunch of people with big egos that like have their territories, and then like, you know, there's no grand admiral like the Mittani who makes all the decisions. There's just
That's
like
not
Vince,
happening in
Goblins, and
Imperium either.
yeah, it's like Vince, Headliner, and Goblins, the three like that run the three alliances of PanFam, right? Like Horde, PL, and NC, and then they usually have a channel and they just yell at each other in there. Often they just go in there and shake shit on each other. But at the end of the day, we make it work, right? So
Yeah, like
that's
so,
kind of how we do things.
you know what? I tend to disagree. I think we like the way Imperium operates and Panther is very similar. The only difference I see is like it's very written down. There's like, you know, there are rules in place and stuff. Rules that you guys probably enforce anyway. You just didn't write them down. You know what I mean? Like for example, when a new FC wants to field caps, we're doing it the same way. He's just like an FC like a roaming FC. That's what we call the first group. And he's like, oh yeah, I would like to bring some triage. Like, yeah, no big deal. You can bring like 1 or 2 triage. And then if he goes like, let's say next stage would be skirmish FC, and he wants to feel like a dread bomb of like 10 dreads. It's not the end of the world if you lose 10 dreads, but some more experienced FC would then take over it a little bit and see like, does that make sense, or is he just gonna like whelp dreads constantly here? And you know, I think it's very similar. Like we try to write down those rules, like I explained earlier, to not have this personal thing in there, so nobody can say, you know, that dude doesn't like me, that's why I can't, you know, climb up the ladder or whatever. But in general, I think that's very, very similar actually. Like, I think you guys are more of a military group than you wanna think, and probably Imperium. I'm not sure about Imperium in general, but our side of the Imperium at least, like in it, we're probably more
Yeah,
like
but I wouldn't
mafia
like. I
than
don't
we
think you
want
can
to.
compare in it all that much like goons, right? In goons, it's very different, and they have like
Yeah,
FC tiers in goons, and they have like there's like all this I don't know how to pronounce the word. All the Papierkram, basically, right? That you
paperwork.
have to do to all the paperwork, all the paper pushing involved. Um,
Bureaucracy. Yeah.
yeah, I just didn't know how to pronounce it. I know the word, right? But I just couldn't pronounce it, and I
Some words
didn't
are
want to
fucking
do it
tough for
because it would have
Germans.
been wrong. It would have been wrong, and then people would have laughed in chat. Okay.
Oh no.
So,
Oh no, you could become a meme.
dude, I was a meme for long
I
enough.
know.
Okay?
That's why I said it. We can talk about that one.
Yeah,
You
we
know what?
can.
I talked about that with Asher not the week before Asher was on. And so for those who don't know, Asher is the FC of the Imperium Supercap fleet. So basically the opposite of you, right? So if
Yes.
and he also, which we should also talk about, he also like was very outspoken about Supers and Titans. But he said, wait a second, how did I get here again? No, I lost my train of thought.
It was about Asher and me being a meme and something
Yeah,
he said.
we talked about the whole meme from X47. So for those who who are not aware, there was the war. I think they call it World War III. I'm not sure. Yeah? All the Imperium, we went up north and pushed into PanFam space. And you were actually main FC for the PanFam side of things, or PanFam
Yes.
and Detco at the time.
Yeah.
And the big fight there, the big battle of X-47, took place, and Imperium won. And when it looked kind of grim for you guys, you told your guys on comms, tell your guys to dock up the faction titans and supers. I don't want them to, get an easy battle report win, right? And we talked
Yes,
about
basically.
that, and it became a little bit of a meme because, line member, like F1 drone 123, he doesn't understand the decision. It's not only the decision of, yeah, we don't want to give them the victory. That's not necessarily all of it, but at the same time, you're kind of responsible for those guys. Not everyone in a Vanquish or in a Vendetta or whatever wants to lose it for the greater good. Like, a lot of them are actually putting those on the field, trusting in your decision to, like, is it worth it or is it not worth it, right? And you made the decision it's not worth it at the time, which is completely fine. And none of our FCs, like, I mean, probably a few people like rolled with it and had a good laugh, but in general, everyone who ever FC'd it kind of must have seen, like, yeah, that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, it's
And yeah.
something that I never really took it personally. It was kind of fun that there's even a song with me, like there's a remix of me saying "Dock up all your faction titans" or something.
Oh,
And
really?
there was like so much. Yeah, there's so much stuff that came out of that on Reddit. I was on the front page. I was like on the front page of Reddit for 2 weeks after that fight, and there's no bad PR, so I'm fine with it. Um, it's kind of fun because they at the CSM summit as well, which I guess is another topic we're going to talk about. But at the CSM summit, Aris came to me and he kind of like jokingly said, "Nah," because that was sort of the first CSM summit I went to was not that long after X-47, right? And he basically came to me and was like, "Well, how does it feel now that you got your reputation ruined?" And I told him, "Look, I never really cared about my reputation that I had with all the line members and all the people of EVE Online. For all I care, I don't care what like Reddit poster 123 thinks about me. What I always wanted to achieve is that all the FCs in EVE respect me, and most FCs in EVE respect me. And that decision didn't change anything about that because, like you said, every person that has ever FC'd before, they would have made the same call. So I didn't really care that I was like a joke for EVE for a couple of weeks because that reputation that I lost, quote unquote, was a reputation that I didn't really care about to begin with.
Yeah, it was weird, but I mean, Reddit is a cruel place. It can be
Very
fun
much.
though, right?
Yeah, I love Reddit. I still love Reddit. I don't
The
mind that
memes
it
are good.
happened to me at all. We memed so much during World War B, right? And
That's true,
when
yeah.
when all the victory, like when we knew we won, basically we started. There was hilarious from our POV. There was hilarious propaganda every day, and I went with that too. Like I just wanted to enjoy my quote unquote victory. Obviously, there was a lot more people involved in World War B than just me, but I just wanted to enjoy the victory. And I basically there's a German saying, right? If you want to throw a punch, then you have to be able to take one, right? Basically, roughly translated. And I threw so many punches during World War B and in the 2 years after that as well, because we dominated the game for 2016, 2017, and half of 2018, or a bit at the start of 2018, right? And we threw so many punches. So when the table turned and when it was time for us to take the beating, of course I'm going to take it, right? I'm not going to go like a bitch and then cry about how Reddit is being mean to me or something. It's just not what I do.
Yeah, and yeah, sometimes that's how it goes. That's how it is. And I've been
Yeah.
in the same position, right? Sometimes Reddit likes to shit on me, and it's totally fine.
Some people in NC dot really dislike you, man. I don't know
Did
why. Like
I
I always
know.
defend you. Like
Oh,
sometimes
you
some
do?
FCs.
Oh, you don't have to.
Yeah,
I
sometimes
know the names, dude. I
our
know who
FCs
it
will
is.
shit talk so much. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I always come on and be like, okay, I understand where you're coming from, but why do you make it personal, man? Like I just don't get it.
There's one particular FC that fucking hates me on a personal level, and I don't even know why.
Yeah, me
Actually,
neither.
he went into local. So when we first started staging in Harkonnen, which was probably not our best campaign ever, because you guys crushed it with like everything you had. Um, so we staged up in Harkonnen, and there was not much going forward there. There was like the reaction was way bigger than we expected. It kinda in the end, in the end, it quite worked out because we had goons coming up, and then we killed everything in fucking Tribute. But at the time when we were on our own there, I mean, we staged there knowing it's gonna be tough, but it was way tougher than expected, so we were forced to not do much. And then, like, that one particular FC came into local and like shit talked me and tried to attack me on a personal level, which was all like super far off, like I don't even know, the typical nerd shit. And I was like, that dude has some issues, holy shit. But from what I heard, he was FC in the one fleet or the Keepster event in H-5 or whatever the system was, right?
Oh yeah,
So that explained it to
H-Tech
me.
that was a disaster.
Yeah.
I was inactive when the whole H-Tech 5 Keepstar thing happened. I was kind of taking a break, and basically the Keepstar was dropped, and I never really leave the channels, right? I always read, and I was like, okay. So I approached Vince, and I was like, do you want me to help with this timer? Do you want me to do something? And basically, I was handed the subcap fleet, and yeah, it was a great experience. I was like, I think I was the only PANFAM subcap fleet on grid, because for some reason we made the decision to have like everyone in caps except me in my subcap fleet. And then sometimes I was told to go to a perch and like fight off some jackdaws or something, or like chase the ravens around, right? I was told to chase the ravens around. So when I warped up with my Munin fleet to the ravens, there was like 6 enemy subcap fleets that would warp on top of me, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
How am I supposed to like chase somebody around if every time I warp somewhere I get chased around by 6 enemy fleets? I'm not talking 6 50-man fleets, I'm talking 6 full fleets that warped on top of me and started bubbling me, and I was like, holy shit, that's too much. And I ended up just warping down into a cap blob and just sitting there, because I was like, fuck this, I'm not gonna warp up there again, are you crazy? And then I left.
Yeah,
So yeah, that was a good experience.
that was a special kind of fight. Like, so like in our cohort, you know Kenda quite well, I guess.
Yeah, Kenna's a cool dude.
Yeah, he just quit. But
Again? What happens to Trigger Happy?
yeah, well, it's gonna be a tough time for Trigger Happy, I have to say. I mean, I still rock the Trigger Happy flag, as you can see in the background. So I hope they're gonna keep going. And
Yeah, me too. There was such a good alliance. Like, I always thought about when I would quit NC, I would join Trigger Happy. I really hope this.
I said the same. If I would ever leave, that would probably be the only alliance I would join. If I wouldn't just do like something else, maybe like over streaming, do like public fleet kind of things and build something up. I don't even know, right? But if I would ever leave in it, that probably would have been my choice.
Trigger Happy is probably, at least like Trigger Happy in the last couple of months, was like every FC stream, because they still get the little quote unquote 100v100, 70v70 fights that if you're at the block level at the moment, you just don't get anymore. And I was like, man, Trigger Happy must have such a good time at the moment. I just want to join them. If they would stay alive, I think eventually Trigger Happy would like become the home of like all the big players, right? It would just be filled with like all the big FCs that are just tired of being a block FC, and they just go to join Trigger Happy to have little fights again.
Yeah, but I mean, from that perspective, you must also think the whole tribute thing, when like Imperium came up, it kind of worked out way better than everyone expected. Like, I expected we like kill tribute and then you guys just move in ASAP, put it on new Fortizars, Keepstars, and then say, oh well, we don't even care, like this is all fixed already. That's what I expected you guys to do. But instead you said like, no, it's probably not worth the effort, and then you just said, let's not take it back and then repeat the mistake. So you just left Tribute completely alone. And then these smaller alliances actually had some space, and they're like, well, if this is up for grabs, let's move in there. And then Trigger Happy moved in there. What are others? Like someone in chat probably knows a couple of groups. There's a few smaller groups now in there that are just fighting on a smaller level, not level, but smaller scale, and they're having a blast. So.
Yeah, TIS had a show about Tribute and Vale recently with all the smaller groups there, and we've actually, like me and Nidus, specifically instructed all our FCs to stay out of Tribute and Vale of the Silent, even if they get bad phone for a timer, because we do not want to involve the big groups in the conflict, because it would ruin it. Because if one big group gets involved, the other big groups get involved, and it just ruins what's happening in Tribute and Vale at the moment. What's happening, or what happen at the end of 2019 is what we need in this game, right? We need more Tribute and Veil of the Silent, small alliances fighting over small territories, super fun content for the people involved. And we specifically told all of our FCs to stay out of it. Nobody's allowed to go there and like, I'm just going to take 10 Titans and ruin their fight. Haha. Not going to happen. Like, we're not allowing it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We have the same but unspoken rule for that, actually. Like, nobody like is taking massive fleets up there. Like, everyone is fine to like take some roaming gangs there. But what complicates things is now the test deployed up into what's it called? Not Decline. What's before Decline?
Pure Blind.
Yeah, Pure Blind. They're not building their dreads right there. They're building them right in front of Tribute and Veil, right? Is it Veil? I think the AP-G is Veil. And that's, you know, there's a test sig right there. So the test sig is now fighting a little bit, or they have been fighting a little bit in Tribute and stuff, which is fine. But now they've got that Aspel there. Then this Aspel gets reffed into final, and then PANFAM gets bedformed for that timer. You know what I mean? And then now they're in between. There's PANFAM and there's us, and in between there's Tribute, and it's kind of complicated now. And as soon as the bedforming starts, you know how it is, right? One side starts, the other side starts, and then, you know, it always spins out of control, and everyone's getting bedformed for everything. And yeah, that one Aspel in Day P-G could just be that reason for the whole bedform shit to start. Which I hope it's not going to be the case necessarily.
Yeah, we'll see what happens when test is done purging Stain or whatever they're doing at the moment. If they actually come back up, we've got some exciting stuff happening that could change up the pace of the war in the north at the moment, or in branch, or whatever you want to call it. Which is FRT. I think is going to move in soon, and then, well, we'll see who responds to that. I think Wounds will also get a bit more involved when FRT deploys.
Yeah, maybe.
But
I don't know anything.
It should be fun to watch.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like you. Most people probably know that I'm not turbo active at the moment, and I'm not running this campaign either. I did one fleet yesterday actually, because there was an IHUB timer and I was home, so I figured, I might as well form a fleet. Unfortunately, GOTG didn't form to defend the IHUB, so I went to their staging and reinforced the jump gate in front of their staging keepstar. That made them form and fight us. We had a little bit of a skirmish, but nothing major. So it was just a fun fight. We ended up getting a fight out of it. That's what I wanted. And we killed the IHUB in the process, and then I went home. But yeah, I've not been super active on the FCing part. Like I said, I still am involved in leadership of NCE, but I don't really do much active FCing at the moment. I'm hoping that I can do that a bit more now again. Hopefully, if this content isn't complete garbage. But I'm not going to fight some weird 1600 timers with Chinese people. No racist.
I think you came back a little bit, or you were about to come back when we deployed up to 5-P in
yes.
You were about to come back actually, but I think the same as me, you probably realized all those timers are either AU time zone for GOTG or US time zone for PANFAM, so there's not that much friction going on in the time zone we could actually fight in, which is Euro time zone, right? There wasn't much going on there. Nobody was really interested in doing those fights, and it's for some reason it never came about to like real fighting over there, right?
Yeah, it's because both sides are thinking very strategic, because obviously Sword Dragon is spinning the whole "we're gonna be evicted" narrative if they don't do something, and then our campaign commander is also, well, yeah, of course he's right, but he's got plenty of places to go. At the end of the day, our campaign commander takes his campaign very seriously as well, and so we obviously play it strategically, and I'm not going to interfere with the campaign commander's decision if he's super active and involved in this campaign, and I'm not, right? I'm not going to say I think this is stupid. I don't think it is. From his point of view, he's playing it very smartly, and the fact is that we are stronger than them by a lot in USTZ, and they are stronger than us by a lot in AU/China TZ, right? So obviously all their stuff is time for China, all our stuff is time for US. And then EU is kind of like, well, I guess we can go reinforce something and see if we can get a
it
fight.
feels hollow
But
though,
nothing
right?
really happens. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's awful.
Yeah.
That's why I said to Nidus and to Vince, it's like, well, if RT deploy up and then Goons deploy, maybe there's actually going to be some EU content, then I'm down to play and FC more again, but I'm not going to try to FC some weird 1600 timers with 50 dudes because nobody can be asked to get into fleet at that time, right? That's just not what I want to do.
You gotta channel your inner Enolite. Fight those 250 dudes in 70 minutes.
Hell yeah, I'm ready for that. The problem is if the 250 dudes are also in Munlands and I'm in 70 Munlands, I'm just gonna get deleted.
Be that inspiration for the next generation, you know?
That does unfortunately not work in this game anymore.
Yeah. So, like, what do you think? Why is that? Do you think people got a little bit? I think it's probably more than one thing, obviously, but
yeah, it's a lot more than one thing.
People got very good at the game. That's one part, right? Like before that, people could have seen that were absolutely like they just fresh out of high sec, you know. They could just start FCing and be so trash that you had the potential of wiping out like massive fleets, even outnumbered. That might be a factor that people just got better. Organizations just like better organized and all that stuff. There's just more information on how to be like how to FC and stuff like this, I would guess. But then also the meta is just unforgiving when it comes to that. Eagles, Munins, very tough to fight outnumbered. Feroxes also, and then Supers and Titans, obviously. Like you're not gonna engage. Like you can't engage them outnumbered really. Like it would be completely dumb, right? So I feel like it's a mix of two things. Or
yeah,
I miss something.
Well, I would actually be a lot more confident to engage the supers in like late China TZ, because one thing I've noticed with the Dead Coast super fleet is they have like 0 facts. Every time they fielded their super fleet and they were like more than a mid away from their staging, they had like 11 facts or something. And if I see I would happily engage a super fleet with 10 facts, even if I have like 10 less Titans than them, I would still fight it because I'm pretty positive I could win it.
Yeah, but the problem then is tie-dye, right?
Yeah, but like I said,
about...
if it's in late China, it's in my favor, right? Like late China heading into UTZ, our reinforcements are going to be way bigger than theirs. Obviously, I'm not going to do it right after downtime. I'm just going to get owned. But if I do it at the right time, I think you can do it. But yeah, I mean, super caps, like that's even an entirely different topic. We could talk about it, but I think they're just they're just not fun.
Yeah, at this point, I think like we almost every time I have someone on, we talk about them, and I've yet to find someone who disagrees that Supers and Titans there needs to be drastic changes.
For all I care, I could delete them, man. Like I unironically wouldn't mind a world where Supers and Titans wouldn't exist, except maybe like Bridge Titans, okay, but fighting caps, like in every alliance, right? Capital FCs are higher ranked than subcap FCs, but that's only because the assets are worth more. FCing caps is the most boring thing in the world. Like, there's nothing to do. And FCing like a Munin fleet, something with an MWD, like an MWD comp, FCing that is so exciting. You make one little mistake, you go into the web range of the Balgorns, and then you get fucked. Sorry, you get ruined by the enemy Baltec fleet, for example. And that kind of stuff. There's like these little decisions that make so much of a difference. And with Titans and Supers, it's like, okay, by the time you jump in with all your super fleets, it's already tie-dye. Then you go like, okay, now 50 Titans DD this Titan. Oh, it died. Let's shoot the facts with the guns. And then you have like 10 minutes to make decisions. It's just so terrible. It's just not fun.
Yeah, I completely agree. The only thing that could be different is like obviously in X47 we had the advantage of Test being on our side, or like Legacy with Shield Supers and Titans, which then, for those who don't understand what I mean by that, is like even if you had the same numbers, we had the advantage we could predict it's going to be EM thermal mostly you're dealing, so all our Titans could be resist tanked pretty much for you guys. So you need effectively more Titans to doomsday our Titans, and because we had Shield Super Titans that deal explode damage, right? So you couldn't just do that. You had the Keepstar, which was, especially in the first fight, a massive advantage. That was a fucking
Yeah, because we how do I pronounce this properly? We made a clever use of tether mechanics, tether shoots that we found out about like a couple days before the X47 fight.
I
We
wasn't
we
aware
found
at
a little
all.
exploit. Yeah,
I
that
I
was great.
I, I think so. In the core channel, I think someone mentioned it before, but it wasn't a big deal in the core, right? I think the test guys probably said it, you know, saying like, "Oh yeah, that was an issue," or like, "That's what we did." You know? They were on
Yeah,
the other
we learned
side
it
in
from you,
yeah,
Alex,
yeah.
as well.
You learned it in a painful way, so you were like, "Oh shit, we need to use that too." In our case, like we're like, "Oh yeah, that's great," but nobody really thought about it all that much, right? And then we were in that situation whenever, so like maybe to explain it to people. So whenever you have to imagine there's like two super fleets. Like the PANFAM super fleet is on the in tether range of their keepstar that they're defending, and we are like 270, 280 cam off, shooting it. And because they're in tether range, if they are not aggressed and they don't have a weapons timer, they can retether. The problem is, and that's now changed luckily, if you DD a target and it's killed, the second that target disappears, your weapon timer is gone and you can retether. So in that time, we would have to do their targets, but like they can just retether. We might waste a lot of damage because they're invulnerable when they're tethered, and that was a real issue there. And on the second timer, we actually dropped all the supers on zero and tackled stuff that way and prevented that. But that's a risky move, and that's not what you really want to do. But we had no choice, and it worked out. And our numbers were quite good. That's always the thing, right? If you lose the first timer, you can't expect to get better numbers on the second timer. You know what I mean? For you, numbers went a little down, probably. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. And for us,
No, they
numbers went a
were
little
they
bit
were
up.
they were up between the first and the second timer, but there were a lot of other factors that just didn't work out. The first, it's the different of approach. Obviously, you guys won the first timer because you put the keepstar into final, but that was really not out of the question. Like everybody expected the keepstar to go to final because all you have to do is keep
Yeah,
have 5 titans shooting it. There's no way we can kill 400 titans by the time that 5 titans have reinforced the keepstar, right? But my plan behind X47-1 was to just inflict as much damage as I could. We wrote off the keepstar the second you guys reinforced it and committed with all of it because we knew it was going to die. There's just no way you can defend the keepstar properly from that big of a titan fleet because you can't wrap it,
that's
and
correct.
there's no way it was going to survive. My goal was to just do as much damage to you guys as possible. Basically, I hoped to do more damage to you than you did to us. And in the first fight, that worked quite well because we grilled that Moloch that DC'd, and we also caught a lot of supers that jumped out to your midpoint. We had a group of people there actually that were catching just people that jumped out to the midpoint, and then we tackled them there and killed them there. We scanned a lot of people down that were DC'd as well. We had an extra squad of people doing that because I knew we weren't going to win the objective. I tried really hard to win the BR, like to win the battle report, because that was the only way to sell the narrative to our members that we somehow made something good out of that fight. And that's also why I made that call to dock up the faction titans, right? Because I wanted to just have the BR be positive in our favor. So then after the X47 shit is over, I could go to the members and be like, look, obviously Keepstar died, but we anticipated that. At least we made them pay 2 trillion ISK or something, you know? Um, First X47, that worked out quite well. Second X47 went to complete shit, obviously, and that was terrible. There was a lot of factors that I couldn't really plan for. But, it was just
What
a
factors you
bad
mean?
call to go in. I should have just not, like, now after all of it is over, it's been almost 2 years since it happened. If I
Still
look
losing
back, if I
sleep
could,
about it?
I would no. I mean, I'm not really losing sleep. I made that call like a long time ago, but I decided, look, basically, I should have stopped after the first X47. X47 one happened. I was happy with the result of that, and then we should have just not went for the second timer, basically. Well, we did. I made that call, and I don't really care anymore.
Yeah. I was just happy. Like, I was pretty proud, to be honest, that we didn't lose a single init titan because we refitted complete EM thermal, and even the ones that were primary survived. So yeah, we got all of that without a single titan loss from init side. Um, but yeah, other than that, I think like I didn't enjoy the fight all that much. I have to say, but it's a good experience in the end, you know. It's a cool thing to do. You know, heavy tie-dye fights are never gonna be my favorite, but once a year, maybe twice a year, you can do it. I feel like that it's like part of the story. It's like a big thing. Um, and you know, the servers held up, so it was a good fight, right? And I think,
I wouldn't say they held up. They didn't crash, but you know, it
yeah,
wasn't
well,
exactly playable.
but it was the potentially the biggest fight in gaming history, you know. I mean, the
Yeah.
biggest super cap fleets of both, like, it's very
Ever.
rare.
There was like
Yeah,
almost 1,000 Titans on grid, so
yeah.
that's crazy.
So the servers didn't crash, so that's one good thing. Um, but yeah, so overall, I think for all sides, it's probably in the end a memorable thing at least, right? So you know, it's not the fight we like, but it's part of the story. I just I just think
Yeah,
it's
it's the
important to
same.
have one of those every now and then.
I 100% agree. It's the same thing I said in the Zeit. I was interviewed by the Zeit, like the paper, the German paper.
Mm.
After I don't remember which fight it was, but it was one of the bigger fights. And I told him as well, like, these fights aren't fun, but they're just part of the game. Sometimes you just have to grind through them. There's like this occasion every, once a year that you just have to grind through it. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of commitment from some people within the coalition, and that kind of made me a bit sad and disgruntled as well afterwards. Especially with some of the people within NC, because I feel like, as an FC, I don't have the option to just, I just DC'd again. I'm just going to go to bed, log off, because being responsible, if I would just leave our entire Titan super fleet exposed like that and go AFK or go to bed, I would, get my head ripped off. But a lot of our line members, unfortunately, and I feel like that worked better in Goons. They actually kept logging in. They sort of didn't lose as many people as we did. But within the first like 2 hours of X47, we lost like 40-50% of our Titans. Obviously, they were still on grid because they were still on grids because of the tie-dye. But those people had left the computer. When I asked for like an X count in fleet chat to see how many DDs we had available,
Mm.
there was like 20, 30 X's out of 200 we should have, or something like that. There was like so many people that DC'd and then went AFK. I didn't even do X's in game anymore. I asked for people to X up on our IRC chat, and we're like, okay, even if you DC'd right now, if you're technically still at your computer and ready to DD, X up and X up in IRC, and there was so little people that stayed at their computer, and I got really disgruntled with that for a while, and now I calmed down a bit. I kind of accepted it, but I got really, really mad because I was like, I can't leave. And you guys just decide, I DC 2 times. This is kind of boring. I'm just going to log off and leave. Yeah, no shit, it's boring. I would like to log off and leave as well, but I can't because I'm the FC. So I kind of expect the same commitment from the members of the Alliance that I spend so much time, fighting for. And that really, really sort of made me question the commitment of a lot of the people in PANFAM towards these kind of engagements.
So do you think that if the roles were reversed, would you think it would have been a different story? Because you guys are on the Keepstar, and everyone who DCs, or everyone who wants to, just leave, they have a way better chance. They can just dock up and then log off. Or like if you DC and you're in tether range, they're like, it might just work out. As soon as my weapon stem is gone, I'm gonna be tethered, or stuff like this.
Oh yeah, still I don't know. Like I don't know the
plays a role, right?
demographics. I don't know the demographics of like Imperium versus us, but I think it would have been on a bit different if we were the attackers. I think that is a factor, yes, because people are like, I can go AFK. I'm probably gonna safe lock. It's like a 50-50, right? But yeah, I don't know. I still haven't really figured it out. I don't want to delve too much into it either because I don't want to shit talk my own alliance all that much. But I kind of just accepted it that, I accepted that that's what it is, and that's just how it's going to be, and that's also how I plan campaigns and how I make my decisions. It's also one of the reasons why we did nothing at all when the Imperium invaded Tribute in Vale and the North, right? In late last year, basically,
Yeah.
2018. Because I knew that if we got into a serious fight like that A, we couldn't win it because you guys outnumber us so much, and B, I wasn't sure I would have the commitment of my alliance to back me up in a fight like that. So I just decided I'm not going to do anything at all. I did a couple of like smaller fights. I destroyed this one Imperium Baltec fleet one day with Headliner together. They were reinforcing one of our forts, and we flash formed a Munin fleet with Horde and PL and NC, and we went and smashed that Baltec fleet because they weren't prepared for us at all. And it was super fun. That was like the one fleet I think I did during that entire invasion, but I wasn't going to commit anything major at any point in time, and I think everybody was pretty clear about that in the north.
Yeah, and then like, so at the time I was trying to push the Imperium, like Asher and the other guys, to then try cut you off and kill P3, and we did that later on. I felt like maybe it was too late, and then you probably already knew like if P3 falls. So for like, maybe I should explain it. You're moving supers and titans around, and there's a super and titan fleet in the area that's bigger than yours. You have to use keepstars. Like if you get caught with your pants off on a Fortizar, that's it. You know, you're gonna lose like several titans if you jump like a massive fleet onto a Fortizar. The only way to move it safely would be from keepstar to keepstar. And the only keepstar in range for you guys would have been P3 to get back, you know, towards safety. Like, did you guys see that right away?
Yeah.
Were you prepped for that? Yeah, I thought
Yeah, we
so.
were
So I
prepped.
thought it's a 50-50 chance. Maybe if we can play it off as if like, oh yeah, we can't kill this, that's the only reason why we're killing this, and then uh, still going for the I-hub. Like we formed fleets still for the I-hub for what was your staging at the time?
SH1 or
SH1,
15W.
exactly. SH1 I-hub or like any constellation I-hubs there. Like show interest and maybe get you guys focused on that, and then kill the keepstar, and hopefully you guys can just, you know, stay there and, you know, act like, oh, we didn't care about this keepstar, that's not our staging. And then maybe realize too late. I thought maybe it's a 50-50 chance that you don't notice, but you know, the second, you know, that thing went into ref, you guys already extracted. So it didn't work, but I thought that was one of the more interesting things about the whole thing there. About
Yeah, it was worth a
the whole.
try, but we did see that coming. The funny thing is that after X47, right after that whole thing happened, we obviously knew that Tribute and Vale, the second you guys, or the Imperium rather, Goon's main force, decide to come back in full force, it was gonna fall. Like we didn't have any illusions about defending it. And I've been wanting to move us into drones for like a long time, basically ever since I don't know, like late 2017, I guess. I started being like, hey, look, we already own all of drones, but we rent it out. Why don't we make this our little delve, right? Why don't we move into drones and just set up shop there and have safe mining, safe industry, blah blah blah, because it's so remote. And I found a system, right, that's currently also our main home, quote unquote, staging in drones is NSI, because from NSI you can reach 222 systems with one Titan bridge. There's 222 systems in range, in Titan range of NSI. So we have
That's
220.
ridiculous.
Yeah, it's insane. There's 222 systems we can protect with our umbrella from NSI that people can rat in, that people can mine in, that people can do whatever they want in from a single system. No other region in the game has that. And I really wanted to utilize it, but it took a lot of convincing to do that. And then obviously when the Goon invasion came, which is, like you said earlier, you thought that we would just go back into Tribute. We got evicted from Tribute and Vale and was like, oh, well, now we might as well go to drones because nothing held us in Tribute anymore. I was kind of sad about it because I wanted to do it earlier than we did. I kind of wanted to just pack everything up we have in Tribute and just go there, without you guys
Well,
pushing us out.
you
But
did
some
unanchor a lot
people,
of stuff too.
yeah, we did, obviously. But we didn't really fully move out, and I was kind of meh. Like I tried for it, but the leadership didn't go for it. So I was like, okay, whatever. And then we got evicted, and then the leadership was like, well, now we might as well go there, and then we went there.
So it kind of
Oh.
worked out. I mean, overall, like nobody should be too mad about all this. Like Tribute is now filled with like smaller alliances, like we talked about it earlier. and now you've got what you wanted, right? A little bit
Yeah,
of
but
an easier spot to
NC
defend
doesn't
stuff.
want that. Like, this is just a different culture. I figured,
Yeah,
I figured the only way we can compete with Imperium anyway, like, obviously we're never going to reach the same kind of mining numbers and whatever that they do, but I would at least wanted to build
fraternities, of
some
course.
kind of competitive industry, right? But we tried it. We went to NSI, we set up shop, we set up all the infrastructure and drones, and we were like, okay, now you guys can go crab and make money, and nobody did it. And we were like, oh, well, looks like nobody in NC dot wants to do it. So then we deployed to Tina, right? And it's also another fact that I just accepted that NC dot is at its core a PvP alliance, and most members just don't care about mining and crabbing. Obviously, they make some money to keep their accounts alive and buy ships, but they don't want to mine 24/7.
The thing is,
That's
though,
just something that I accepted.
it's very similar in it, right? Like we are at its core, we are also PvP. Like that's always gonna be our focus. Like, where do we get what our guys want? Like they want to kill shit, but at the same time, it's very hard to get any content of that sort. And you guys had to deploy to Tina to get some content, but it's not, it's not that easy. It's a different time zone and all that stuff. So like, I bet like a lot of guys in NC are probably not super happy with that either. And like, where do you go? EVE is just a little bit too big for the few groups we have right now, and that's what I feel like, at least, because everyone is so condensed under the umbrellas. It's like very hard to just go out and get those good fights, especially for the size of a group like that NC is, or even in it, right? We're like comparable size.
You have like twice our characters in your alliance, by the way.
Well,
I
that's
wouldn't really call it
characters.
comparable.
If
Yeah,
we've
but
like,
there's a
but
reason for that, right? And you have initiative mercenaries as well.
but
So
whenever I talk numbers, I always talk numbers. Like, if we form a strat op, how many people can we form? And if you form a strat op, like, how many people
yeah,
can you
in
form?
that
And that's
regard, we are
fairly,
somewhat similar. Yeah.
that's, I mean, some alliances just clean up their stuff way better. Like, I would say, I would count you guys to that. You like clean it up a little bit better. Probably a lot more of a culture of having your Care Bear Isles in other alliances, maybe in Horde or whatever. In it, for example, we don't care too much if your corp, for example, has a little bit of like fat on it, character-wise and stuff. It's not OPSEC-wise, it's not good. I've been pushing to clean up forever, right? Like, there was this one corp in IM, like, for ages, the worst corp I've ever seen. I don't even feel bad for saying it, but it's a corp called Ember Inc. They came over from Legacy, and they were just so shit, and I couldn't get Bliss to remove them. It took ages, right? So we just don't clean up our alliance all that much, but I think number-wise on field, we're very much comparable. Yeah. So we talked about, like, one more time we fought against NC was like before World War B, but you weren't in NC at the time. And we were flying a doctrine called Snatch a lot at the time. Did we ever fight? Did you ever fight like a Snatch fleet at the time? Probably didn't, huh?
No, not really. We didn't really bother with snatching all that much. I remember that there was like this one time that it was PK running most of the EOTC fleets back then in NC, right? And the EU PK, Poisonous Kevin or whatever he was called.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that one time he had all of his Macarials fit Cynos, and then like light Cynos on like
Oh my
150
God.
Macarials, so you could snatch them or something. And I was like, what? I was like, what are you doing?
That's
He's like,
the
well,
worst idea.
if all of us have Cynos up, you can't snatch us. And I was like, buddy, I don't know about
you
that
know who
one.
that did? I didn't fight him at the time. Like, that never. I don't even remember doing that. But you know who did that too? Ragnar Bile, who is now in PL, I believe. Or is he still? I might be
I
somewhere
don't
else
think
now.
he plays anymore. Peak left PL, right? I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
I'm
Peak left
sure.
PL, went to FRT or went to PL.
But
I don't
yeah.
even know anymore.
But Ragnar, he's a cool dude. Like, I was like we had some easy conversations and stuff. Like, he's a good dude, but he was in culture at the time, so we fought him, and he did that with Feroxes. So he had all his guys put Ferox Cynos on the Feroxes, and when we started snatching them, they lit Cynos, but a lot of them were too late. So a lot of them were stuck like 100 km off the fleet and all that stuff. It was a complete shit show. But our fleet was so tiny, we couldn't kill all that much. But it was hilarious when I saw that and like the grid lit up with Cynos. It was too funny. I would have loved to do that with Macarials. Holy shit.
I linked you a picture in links and videos in your Discord, what I think needs to happen to Eve for it to be more healthy again. So you could look at that. It's very rough.
Let me link it in. Let me link it in thingy chat. Yeah.
Obviously, that's just it's a meme. That's not gonna happen. But I feel like there's just no need, right? Like, why would anyone leave their home except for just killing somebody else because they can? Just no need to move around because everybody just delve. Like, it's insane how many characters, how many people, goons, stuff into delve and Quarius, and it works, right? Like, they are by far the biggest alliance in the game, and they fit all of that into delve, which is a fairly small region. Delve isn't that big of a region.
Yeah.
Imagine how many people you could theoretically put into drones. It's just never gonna happen.
Yeah, like one of the things I suggested before is that the more, I mean, obviously, resource depletion, it should be an obvious thing, you know. So if you mine a lot, that after a while there's nothing more to mine. It should just be, it should be so obvious. I don't even know why we even talk about it. But then the same also with reds and the respawn stuff. And I think there should be an easy way to fix that. And when you say, for example, the more you red, the higher your security status of the system should be. Right? Obviously, if there's a lot of retting going on, it should be more secure. Right?
Yeah.
So, and
But then
pipe
eventually
systems close
0-0 would turn into high sec.
yeah, probably, right? And then everyone's moving to low sec to do whatever or run missions. Like, I don't even care, right? But
that would be chaos.
Yeah, but then you have an incentive to move out of that space and stay a little bit more flexible. I mean, like this is more of a meme, but like, what do you think is the most important thing you think CCP really needs to address? Like, do you have something on your list there? I mean, I'm sure you do, because I mean, you're ex-CSM member. I'm sure you had a long list and brought it forward.
To be honest, this might sound like a really boring answer, but the main issue with CCP is the company itself, not the way that they work internally. It is like there's a lot of devs. For example, we had a big discussion about the soft system again in one of our FC channel recently, and I told them the developers at CCP, they know that the Zorf system is bad and they want to change it, but they simply can't because they don't decide what they change, right? They get a plan, a development plan by their leadership. They're being told, this is what you have to work on. This is what we think needs to happen with the game. And the leadership of the game just doesn't think that Zorf is a priority at the moment. And that's why it's not being worked on. And they know, like the devs themselves, people like CCP Rise, CCP Fozzy, if you talk to them, they will agree to you. They will straight up say, yeah, I see that the system isn't working out very well, but unfortunately we can't really work on it because it's not on our timesheet or whatever, right? Like that's what the issue is. It's not like they don't know the problems with Eve. It's they don't have the manpower. Manpower is a very big issue as well.
Dev time is the currency.
Yeah, and dev time, right? It's manpower and dev time, and they have neither. And that's the big problem at the moment. And that's why that's what I think the biggest issue is. Obviously, that's not like a gameplay answer. If you would ask me what I think in game needs to happen, there's so many things, right? Like caps need to be addressed. Freaking Zorf needs to be addressed. Structures needs to be addressed. The whole idea behind the blackout wasn't a bad idea, but they did it terribly with just turning local off instead of, there's like 20 elegant ways of having local be a part of the game without just granting you perfect intel on somebody. But obviously, they didn't have the time, they didn't have the resources to develop that kind of system, so they just switch it off because it's easy, right? And that's a lot of the changes that CCP makes, unfortunately, work that way. They know that there's technically better solutions they could find, but they don't have the time and the resources to implement them. So they could just go with the easy band-aid solution, and then that sucks most of the time, right?
And that was always my what do you call it? Maybe my fear, my concern that there is a systematic problem behind all these little issues. And I call them little issues, they're really big issues actually. Citadels, Super Titans, the soft mechanic, local, you know. It's like those are big issues that, you know, maybe on a daily basis nobody, like, you don't notice them all that much, but over time they really, like, they deplete the game of content, I feel like. And yeah, I I just hope they're gonna change some. I mean, it feels like, I'm not sure if you can talk at all about that, but it feels like, but like Team Talos, he seems like, so CCP Rise seems to have a little bit more power now, a little bit more leverage on like what's being done, what's not being done. I could be wrong there, or like I'm just guessing. It just comes across like maybe we're gonna see some more drastic changes to stuff. But
Team Telos is a great idea, and I really hope that they can keep up the pace with the changes, because that was one of the things I've been talking to CCP Rise specifically about, and very much told them. And please, before I say this in Twitch chat, you guys don't get mad at me for comparing Eve to games like League of Legends, because obviously it's a different game, and I know it's something else. But one thing I did like back when I actually cared about League was, they introduce a new champion or back in my day, that was like literally 10 years ago when I played League, right? They would introduce a new champion every month, and the champion would be OP, and then they would fix it. But for that 1 month, like 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, after the release of the champion, they would nerf him, right? Obviously, they did that to make money, because everybody would buy the champion with real money, blah, blah, blah. I know that. But
they're just way
what was
quicker
fun?
to iterate.
Yeah, what was fun about that was they introduced a new champion. It completely shook up the meta for 3 weeks, and then he was nerfed, and then the meta kind of went a bit stable again. And then a new champion came. It completely changed up the meta, and then they nerfed him, and then this meta was a bit stable again. You can't do it with such a fast pace in Eve, obviously, because there's industry involved. You have to build the ships that you use. You have to produce whatever infrastructure that they introduce into the game. But I would really like the meta of Eve to switch up every 6 months or so, right? Like they introduce a new ship, like a new trick ship, for example, or they nerf the Munin really hard and they buff the Zealot, right? Like I love Zealot fleets. My favorite fleet comp of all time are Maelstroms and Zealots, right? I would really like to just buff the shit out of the Zealots so everybody stops flying Munins, everybody flies Zealots for a couple of months. Then CCP realizes, oh shit, the Zealot is OP. They nerf it again and they make another ship strong so that the meta changes up so it doesn't get stale. Like I was so happy, unironically, when they buffed the Munin. How long ago is that now? Over a year, right? Like over 1.5 years when they buffed the Munin. I was so happy because the Munin was dead before that. I was like, finally we can fly the Munin again. Such a fun ship. Finally I can FC the Munin, because I
Yeah.
never FC'd the Munin before. I only flew with Elo FCing it, and that was his signature chip. And I was like, finally I can FC the Doctrine that my
Your idol.
inspiration flew, right? Yeah. So I was like really happy I could FC the Munin. But now the Munin has been the meta dominating ship for the last year and a half. It's fucking boring. I want to see a new ship be OP again. And that's just something that they can't figure out for some reason. And I really, really hope that Team Talos does exactly that. I really hope that they nerf what is broken at the moment. Then something else will become strong. The meta will change. People will fly new doctrines. People have to adapt. And then they nerf it again, and so on and so on.
So yeah, I hope they do exactly that. But on top of it, I hope they're not afraid to touch bigger things. Because I feel like the whole Blackout thing, because it was poorly done, that might just scare them off touching things in significant ways. For example, Citadels. I don't want to go on a rant here, but it's there's some real issues with them, and it's not done with like some timer changes and stuff like that. There needs to be done way more. Like if you think back about the station days, you had stations you could dock there, but the second you undock, like you're in a PvP environment, and now you have a massive tether range of I don't even know how wide, and like it's just so many like the defenses of it and all that stuff. Like there's so much wrong with those. Like there's working so against content, and there's so many of them. That's probably one of the major issues with them. They never limited them, even though they should have known better. You know, oh, there's going to be only like few keepsters in the game. Like, no, dudes, like, do you know this game by now? It's the same argument they had with Titans, right? There's going to be only like 3 Titans in the game. It's there.
Yeah, it was so hilarious. That was
Yeah.
so good.
So they should have known this and limit them. Like, maybe limit keepsters like 1 keepster per region, or let's say 2 keepsters per region. A few Fortizars maybe, or like Sotios. You don't need a Sotio in every second system.
Yeah,
Just
I would
because
really
your
like a
miners are
limit
lazy.
like
You know?
that. I would really like a limit, like maybe 1 keepstar per constellation maximum. I wouldn't even mind 1 keepstar per region. That would, because
That would be
technically
way cooler.
the keepstar is supposed to be the giant home foothold of your alliance, right? So I feel like if they would limit it to 1 keepstar per region, and then maybe 1 fort per constellation, and then I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 smaller structures per system, I think that would be really cool. And like right now, off the top of my head, I kind of really think of any bad like reasons why not to do that. But I'm sure there will be people that will tell me a lot of bad, things that are bad about that. But I think it sounds cool because right now you have systems where in Delphi you have systems like 5 keep stars, 4 keep stars. We have systems with a keep star and then like 30 forts and like 100 Astra houses around it. So there's like no way you can ever really deny the people to be on that grid.
Yep.
There's just so many structures and they're so hard to remove. I still don't understand why Astra houses have even 1 reinforcement timer. For all I care, Astra houses or Raitarus or something could just pop. Or maybe have 1 small reinforcement timer. I don't get why they have to have 3 timers. It just makes no sense. And then
They're
every
just
time you bring that
hostile.
up with somebody at CCP, they go like, but what about the little guy? What if they get evicted? They have to prepare for defending this shit. And it's
What
like,
about the little guy?
oh,
How are they supposed to hit the bigger guy then?
bro, yeah, like, come
Works
on,
both
the
ways.
little guy, I get it, but if you're not capable of defending your structure, you don't deserve to own one. Period. And
Yeah, and then
no, like,
also the little guy. It's not like the little guy's chances are going like up on the second time or third timer. It's just gonna be a lot more fucking work and a lot more painful. I feel like, right? It's not working for the little guy either. I think at least.
no, it isn't. It isn't at
Yeah.
all.
And I think that not only that you should limit, so like I actually wrote down a proposal. I'm not sure if you read my Reddit post a while back. I posted a couple of things that I thought that need to change, and one of them was citadels to a degree. I left out the whole limit citadels thing because I didn't want people to focus on it too much. But I actually wrote it down, and I wanted to limit the citadel types, let's say, like a combat citadel or whatever they call them, like keepstars, fortizars, astrahouses. Then you have obviously refineries like Tataras and Athanos, and then you have Aspers and so on for production, right? So limit the type, so you can only have, let's say, 2 combat citadels per system. You can only have 1 keepstar per region. There's like a couple limitations, and then also limit them with the size, so you don't have a keepstar and a Tatara and a Satio all in one system for like maximum laziness, and everyone can just warp. No, this system might be your staging system, and then the system next door might be your industry system. You know what I mean? And then you
Yep.
don't have a Satio in every system because they just got too much cash and they're like, oh, well, might as well. I don't want to whoop around my freighter too much. No, there should be, like, it's all opportunities that are lost because of this, and it's just, you know and I think it's still possible to do it, because a lot of people will probably say like, but how do you do it now? There's already too many citadels in there. Yeah, and you're like, they're right to a degree, but I think if you give it a deadline, let's say, hey, we fucked up, in half a year we're gonna implement the citadel limitations, and on day X, um, it's gonna start that, every citadel that shouldn't be there after the new rules, they're gonna start unanchoring, and then for the attacker side, if you anchor, for example, you have a keepstar in a system and you also have a fortizar, but you shouldn't have a second fortizar, if you anchor one anyway, it should go up, it should go online, but after 10 days it should go offline again. That way, like attackers, like if you guys want to invade Delft, for example, and you want to, anchor up Fortizar, in that time you can have the chance to actually remove a combat citadel of, the opposing force, and then, have your beachhead or whatever you want to call it. So I think there are ways to get it right. It's a complex issue, but yeah, I think it definitely needs to be done. And then Supers and Titans, which is interesting. We talked about it before. Asher and you both like of the biggest sides, biggest super cap FCs in the game right now. I think both agree. Remove them if you want to, but that's not gonna happen. So you both agree in that they need to be nerfed to a degree, which is kind of interesting. The guys with the most of them agree to that.
Yeah, and it's me saying it, even though right now they work in our favor because the Supers and Titans are the only real force multiplayer left in the game, whereas we can fight Deadco and RR and Zip Squad, like we can fight the whole branch coalition, Deadco basically, even if they outnumber us in subcaps, because we have, at least in EOTZ, we have super cap superiority, right? And we can take some fights that we might not be able to take just on a subcap merit. But the way that they work is just so boring that like they have to be just changed, or like I said, right now I probably wouldn't care too much about them being removed, but at the end of the day, they are the only real force multiplayer left in this game. There's no other force multiplayer left all that
But
much.
Taxes, Carriers, Dreads are force multipliers to a degree, right?
Yeah, that's true, I guess. But yeah, I mean, carriers are really kind of
Yeah.
meh.
What?
Dreads are fine. Horde Dreads, I think. They're really, really cool. And I like the fact that, they can actually die, unlike a Horde Titan. Who cares that a Horde Titan does like
Well,
a third of the DPS of a Horde Dread, right? Because the Horde Titan just can't die. Horde
and
Dread gets volleyed by a bunch of ships.
so like when you FC, do you do like only big fleets, or do you sometimes take out like 20-man roams or like a bit of
Nah.
both, right?
So the issue I have like with 20-man roams is that I hate going 50 jumps to maybe find a fight. If there's like a system I can go to, so for example, back when we staged in there was a little period where we had reset Horde when we were staging in hashtag 5, I think it was, with NC Dot, and we actually reset Horde for a short period of time because we wanted to be neutral with them and kind of fuck with them a bit. And I would actually take, 40, 50 man gangs over to the staging because I knew I would fly these 15 jumps and somebody in Horde would form up and fight me. But just randomly flying off into space, hoping I can find somebody to kill or fight is not really my style. I don't really like doing that all that much.
Yeah, I think nowadays it's like on average, it's very hard to be successful with it. Back in the day, like let's say 2012, you had a way higher chance of taking out 10 guys and then actually getting a fight. A fight that you can win, a fight that you don't get like supers dropped on you and stuff. Nowadays, I think it's just way harder. It just is. And on average, yeah, it probably isn't worth it on average if you do it. You have to be really good at exactly what you do. Like everyone who watches my like roams every now and then, like usually we whelp like smaller fleets. That's not that expensive and stuff like this. Because I mean, it's just the risk you put that fleet into every time. There's like the blobs are just bigger, and like everyone is very aware of the umbrella mechanics. Sino goes up, supers jump in. That's problem solved for them. It's very tough right now for roaming stuff. Then get better Pando. Yeah. I'm trying. But yeah, I think the times have changed. Plays a big role there.
Yeah, very much. I also want to respond to the question of Okulu in chat. He said, I fear what FCs are saying and what CSM is telling CCP are two different things. From my experience in the CSM, I can tell you that the CSM is pretty aware of what the issues are. Right now, we have Willy in the CSM, who is a very much a large scale FC for test, obviously. We have Gobbins in there, who is the alliance leader of Horde. They know what the problems of the games are. Obviously, everybody has a little bit of a different view on it. But from my personal experience in the CSM, politics, in-game politics, are very much set aside for the CSM meetings and summits. So, for example, my CSM summits that I attended, we always sat down the night before the first CSM meeting, and we basically agreed to a CSM agenda that all the people within the CSM, no matter where they came from, agreed to. We set out, those are our 3 main points that we want to push during this CSM summit. And then we pushed them wherever we could, right? And those 3 points were agreed on by all of the CSM members, right? Otherwise, we would talk, discuss, and maybe come up with new points. So in-game politics didn't matter all that much. Obviously, people are never going to believe that until they are part of the CSM, because I like conspiracies are fun. But that's my personal point of view. That's how the CSM worked when I was there. Obviously, things could change, but at least in my time, it was very constructive and wasn't like any metagaming. There was a little bit of metagaming, but not that much.
Yeah, I mean, so what I always wonder is like, is the CSM other guys getting along so they can do that? And
most of the time, yes. Obviously, there's people you like and there's people you like less, right? Like, for example, Merkel Chen, who's the CEO of Karma Fleet and Goons. He's probably the greatest guy I've ever met in the CSM. He's just so fun to be with. He's fun to drink with. He's fun to talk to. He's fun to hang out with. He's fun to have lunch with. He's just a fun guy. You just want to be around him. And he was like the person I got along with the best. Obviously, he made me an offer to join Goons straight away. It's like, bro, maybe one day, who knows?
One day, when Goons become the small scale or the mid scale content PvP alliance, right?
Yeah, there you go. Omega saying is 5% metagaming. There's some, but not that much. No, definitely. Like there's most of the people on the CSM I met were super cool and fun to hang out with. We went out basically every evening after the CSM sessions. We went out to bars. We went out to drink and eat together. It was always fun. And I didn't. There was like no hard feelings in my time, really.
That's also
what
the
about
impression I
Sword
got.
and Billy? Oh yeah, I can talk about that if you want.
What about
somebody asked?
yeah.
Because there was like this guy that.
Yeah.
Go on.
So for I'm just gonna explain. So what Via's talking about is the whole narrative of like test deploying up with the comment of like, yeah, I think Sword is bad for the CSM, for the game, because he's on the CSM now, and we want to kill his voter base, which is kind of weird if you really wanted it. I said it before, I don't think that's the way to go, but even if he kills the coalition, there's a fair chance a lot of people don't like Willy and then say, oh, well, we can fuck with Willy by voting for Sword. But hey, whatever. But yeah, that's the narrative. And you haven't been on the CSM when that happened, obviously. Sword replaced your seat in the CSM. So what do you think happened? What's your best guess?
I mean, I know what happened, right? Because I know what they said and I know the way we usually approach the CSM. And Willy has the CCP with the CSM, and Willy wanted to do a new approach on how to go to CCP. Basically, talking and communicating with CCP can be very difficult at times because some people in the staff, they're very, I want to call it unprofessional, in the sense that if you call one of their ideas bad, if they introduce a project that they're working on, or if they maybe show you a new idea for a ship, and you go and be like, that's an interesting idea, but with those numbers and that kind of stuff, that ship is really bad. It's not going to be good for the game. It's going to ruin something. For example, a lot of the devs at CCP, they take that stuff super personal and they just end up not talking to you anymore at all. There was this one really stupid thing. I obviously can't tell you what, but there was this one really stupid thing that CCP once suggested, and a person in the CSM was very outspoken about it being a terrible idea. He said something like, "This is a super retarded idea." The dev in charge of that idea ended up never talking to that CSM member again because he was so hurt by the person calling it a bad idea. And it's kind of unfortunate because it's a bit like a kindergarten, in my opinion. If you can't take criticism on something you work on, then I don't know what you are doing in a professional environment, in my opinion. Maybe it's different because in Germany we obviously have a very different culture at work, as maybe Icelandic culture is different, I don't know. But basically what the problem between Willy and Sword was, we sort of established this way of communicating with CCP that we always approached them very carefully. We always did it very, kind of through the flower. We never really told them straight up if we thought something was a bad idea. We always
I'm not
kind
sure
of
if through the
tried to.
flower is an English
Yeah, that's
expression,
probably not a thing in
but I think
English.
everyone gets it.
Yeah, we try to smoothen it out really well so they wouldn't get mad if we called their idea bad. We try to sort of package it in a nice pink wrapper paper and then give it to them, and then they were like, oh, sucks, right? Yeah, CCP devs are snowflakes, exactly. So, and Willy had a different approach. Willy basically came onto the CSM and said, I'm going to tell them directly what I think is bad. I'm going to tell them exactly what I think they need to change, and I'm not going to do any of the sugarcoating at all, right? And that's just a major disagreement that Sword has with Willy, because Sword has a lot of experience on the CSM, and he basically told Willy, hey, I think you shouldn't do that. I think it's going to hurt the relationship of the CSM with CCP. And Willy said, I don't know if he said that right, but that's just my point of view. Billy basically said, fuck that. I'm just going to do it anyways because I know it works that way. And Willy has a lot of experience in what he does because he is in the military. He knows how to run stuff. Like, in my opinion, if you are part of the military, obviously works a bit different in the military than in a private company, right? But still, he knows how being in charge of something works. And that was basically what their argument was about, in my opinion. And that is Yeah, I mean, I don't really have an opinion on it. Honestly, I don't really care. I was pretty happy when Test said they were going to deploy up and help us because cool, we can use the numbers, and
Which is
working
weird
with
though.
ProGod is always fun.
I mean, look,
Working with ProGod is always hilarious. So
yeah.
I was up for it, but that's basically what happened from my point of view. And it's just sad. Like, I feel like the fact that has to be a topic in the first place is just kind of sad. This is kind of comes back to my opinion that the biggest issue with Eve is the internal structure of CCP at the moment, because there is just, you can't really talk to these. And again, I'm sorry if some of the CCP devs are listening, or maybe get this linked later because I know that happens. Not all of the CCP devs are like, there are totally some devs that I talk to that are completely cool and approachable, and you can talk to them very open, but some aren't. And that's why the CSM has established this culture of sugarcoating stuff a lot, right?
You know what? I do understand sort of example with the guy, like with his little idea or like big idea, I don't even know, his idea. And then a CSM guy saying this is absolutely retarded. I mean, that comment is kind of emotionally charged too. You know what I mean? So I totally get it. That if you worked on a project and you think it's the best idea ever, you bring it forward and then it gets crushed by some CSM guy. I totally get it that you take that personally. But take
Yeah,
it
you can be
personally
mad
for
for a
a
day. You
day.
can be mad for a
Exactly.
week. Yeah, exactly. But you're not going to be mad forever.
Yeah,
Like, that's
you
just
have to.
unprofessional.
Yeah, you have to be able to then approach it and say, okay, he might have not picked the best constructive choice, like the constructive words for it, right? Calling it retarded, that's not the best way to approach anything, I think. But there must be something there, and then sit down with the guy. And usually, like from my experience at least, if you sit down with people, they usually say like, oh, like I appreciate that you actually give a shit, and let's talk about it. And then that's where the constructive stuff comes out as like the first time. It's not the
Yep.
first comment that is usually the most constructive, right? It's just there is a problem there. You have to find out what the problem is though. Yeah, that's kind of, running a company 101, I would say. But I don't know. I don't run a company, so
Moon 2K3 makes another great point about, the devs, a lot of the devs not playing the game, which now they've lifted that whole thing where they have to be super secret about them playing, which is great. I really hope that some of the devs really take that deal. Basically, they take the
I know they do.
opportunity to. Yeah, I know some of them do. But I really hope that they go out and become involved in alliances as well, so they actually understand the game mechanics. Because sometimes it was really weird when we went to a CSM session and we wanted to talk about the terrible lag in a certain fight, or we wanted to talk about how OP a certain doctrine is, and some of the devs, they just didn't know what we were talking about at all. It was like we actually had to explain the game to them, and I obviously I don't work in game design. Like, I feel like maybe sometimes it is like that, but I didn't understand how is it possible that we as the players, we have to explain the game to the people that develop it, and it happens so often, and it just I was like, that's kind of when I started losing hope, right? There's also a reason why I dropped out of the CSM. Main reason is that I am really, really active in my real life now in terms of working. I actually have a full-time job and everything now, so I just simply don't have the time to put in anymore. But I also would say that the CSM also like it kind of, for people that do not join the CSM, there's always this light at the end of the tunnel. There's like, surely CCP has a great master plan. Surely this is all going to get better at some point. And me being in the CSM just kind of took that away. I still believe that there is a chance, obviously, for the game to recover. I'm not one of those guys that says CCP, EVE is dead. I'm not one of those guys, but I just didn't want to be part of the CSM anymore because I want to get that light back. I want to get that hope back that EVE is going to be great one day. And I just didn't want to see the internal workings of CCP anymore. I just wanted to enjoy the game with the little time I have left. I just want to get as much enjoyment out of this game as possible and not deal with the problems of it.
Yeah, I totally get that. Totally do. And I feel like with a couple changes, I have a little bit more hope now with those filaments they brought out. It might just be a little thing for small roamers, but
That's great. It's great.
yeah,
The
like
main
that's
the main
just
reason they're scared to release it is, but what about the persistency of our universe? Fuck it, man. Just release them. Just make them permanent. Those things were so much
chaos
fun, man.
era.
Nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, and I think like it not. I mean, it's not only that they're great and stuff, but they also tell me that they're actually looking at okay, content creation. People need to get out and have that chance of you can't just do 50 jumps and then maybe get a fight like this way. You take that leap of faith and maybe you get lucky. And there's going to be way more people active and doing stuff because of it. And I really hope they're going to implement something permanent very soon. I mean, I think they're probably going to do that probably on FanFest. That's probably one of the major things they want to finish before FanFest, I can imagine. Um, and I just like there's a couple things that I just see where I think, all right, they at least admit there is a problem here, and like hopefully they're working on it. Like the Dromi Siren changes and stuff like this, didn't go quite far enough, I feel like, but they admit there's an issue they're working on. So yeah, they don't have the dev time to do it perfectly. Like you said, that's always a little bit of a shame. But yeah, and then but so you were talking about the CSM guys. Do you think like obviously there's 10 people on the CSM. Do you think they are like the whole group is diverse enough? And then
No,
also the
hell no.
knowledge gap. Yeah, so
It's all 0-0 people, right? And like one guy from HiSec, and then maybe one guy
and
from LowSec.
Ixuki is on there. I mean, we
Oh
kind of
yeah,
voted
right.
Ixuki on there. He got
True.
just barely on. It's like, do you think the main issue? Obviously, you're very aware of the voting mechanics. You have to be if you want to get on. You have to understand what's going on. And how it works is that if I vote for dude 1, 2, 3, and 4, and dude 1 gets already on, let's say that's you, and then my second vote isn't even needed for him to get on, my second vote trickles down to dude 2. And so that way, my alliance, if it's the biggest, in this case, let's say Goonswarm, they have just the most efficient way of making use of all their votes, and that way they get the most people on there. How many do we have? 3? And it's not even their fault. It's like the trickle-down mechanic of things just forces big null blocks to make the perfect, efficient use of every single vote. And I think that's the main reason why the diversity of the CSM is just so, bad.
Yeah, see, that's the voting system is obviously a joke in my opinion. I don't know how to fix it because I have no idea about voting systems. But the way I did my campaign to get reelected into the CSM, I didn't have to I basically did what Aerith did, where he always on the public forums he always posts I don't care if you vote for me or not because my coalition's gonna vote me in anyways. I didn't write it like that, but I did a super low effort post on the public forums. I put like nothing in there. I said like, hey, I'm Killah Bee, I'm an FC for this game, and I've been in the CSM before. That's it, right? All I did to get into the CSM again was I talked to my alliance leader, I talked to PL's alliance leader, I talked to Test. Well, Willy's not the alliance leader, but I talked to Willy, and I talked to Gobbins. I told him, hey, look, how about, I'm going to be NC number 1. How about I put the Horde candidate number 2? You put me number 2 in return. And I went to PL and said, hey, look, do you guys even have a candidate? The headline was like, no, we don't have a candidate. We're going to put you on number 1 and then the Horde candidate number 2. It's like, great. Then I went to Test. I was like, look, how about we put your candidate number 3 and you put me in number 3 in return? It was like 5 conversations, 10 minutes, and I was in the CSM. I was dead, done. Why would I bother campaigning? Why would I bother going on thousands of podcasts, talk about myself, when all I have to do is talk to 5 alliance leader and be voted in? And then, don't get me wrong, I think it's terrible, like because there's people. There's this one guy, Commander Ace from Goons. I think he quit now, but Commander Ace, not Eve, but he quit running for CSM. Commander Ace put so much effort into every single one of his campaigns, right? He went to all the podcasts. He made a great post on the forums. He went like to all the public events and participated into debates and shit like that, right? And he never got elected because he never had a big coalition bloc backing him, right?
Yeah. And that's, I don't even know how the Heisek, what's his name again? Steve. Isn't Steve Renogen, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he gets all the Heisek votes, right?
Yeah, but like, that's the problem about Heisek usually, that the Heisek guys are not aware all that much. And they don't care all that much, you know what I mean? And then there's only that one candidate that works kind of for him. There's only that one candidate really for Heisek that I'm aware of.
So if they want somebody on CSM, they need to find somebody they want to back.
They don't have the choice there, That's the problem there the Wormhole guys had. They have just enough votes to get him on, one Wormhole guy, but then everyone is split up in Wormhole space. Not necessarily crazily, but like, let's say in like 3 kind of parties, you have like the Inner Hell kind of group, and then you have like what's a TD Sin, and you have the like the Hardlocks part of it. They all work together in some ways and all that stuff, but it's like they're split up, so their voter base is all split up. So they always struggle to get anyone on because they're all like, oh yeah, I vote my guy, but I hate the other guy. Like,
but that's also their fault, right? Like, it's half CCP's fault for the voting system being shit, and it's half the people's fault because they don't understand that the CSM is not about getting my guy on. The CSM is about getting the most competent guy in the field on. And it is about putting your ego aside, putting your in-game politics aside, and putting the people on the CSM that are the most competent in what they're supposed to represent. And if the Wormholers can't get their shit together and figure out whoever is the most competent guy, then they don't deserve to have somebody on the CSM. They did it. They got Exuki on. I think from what I've seen working with him, he's a very competent guy. And when it comes to wormholes, good job. If Lowsec wants to have that, then Lowsec needs to get their shit together. Forget about the in-game politics. Find out whoever's the most competent for Lowsec and get them voted on. Lowsec has enough votes to get somebody on if they all vote for the same person, or most of them, right? And we, with the 0 blocks, are in the luxury where we don't have to do that, right? Because we can just vote our guy in because we have so many votes. And then obviously Omega, who has just a lot of support from a lot of different groups as well.
Yeah, I think Omega did a great job with his campaign, like the timing of things and stuff, like with the video, the Whaler. Not sure if you guys have seen it.
Yeah, that video was amazing.
And in general, I think the timing and stuff, it just worked out well, and he got way more votes than I would have expected, to be quite honest. I think he was like, what, candidate number 3 to get in, or 2?
Yeah. He got in very easily.
Yeah, that was surprising. Like, I thought he's gonna be like one of those guys. Maybe he gets a slot, but yeah.
I was pretty positive he was gonna get on. It's basically like Brisk. I don't want to. No, Omega, you're not like Brisk, okay? I'm sorry, but in the sense that, so Brisk got in because he made a hilarious PR campaign and everybody kind of meme voted for him. Omega is not a meme candidate. Omega has a lot of knowledge about the game, and what he does, he's the best at what he does, in my opinion. So he definitely deserves to be on the CSM. But he also did really well with PR. He got a lot of votes from the Goons guys, because everybody knows Omega for how much damage he's been doing to goons in Delve. Then he made a really, really good video, and we put Omega on our list as well, just because, you know, we basically didn't know what to fill our ballot with. There wasn't enough good quote unquote candidates that we would like fill the 10 slots anyways, so we just slapped them on there as well, right? And a lot of other alliances did that as well. So he got a lot of combination of votes, and he got in very easily. And it's good, because we need somebody like him to balance out the 0-0 block heavy part of the CSM.
Yeah, I think a lot of times what also happened is, so let's say NC, who are obviously on the Dragoon side, you have your candidates. You're number one. I don't know who's number two. What do you
Some
say?
guy and some test guy.
All right. So that's the list you give out to your guys. But what they actually vote is still their choice. They are just, trusting in, you, for example, saying, okay, those are the candidates, and you think they're best. Then, I believe you, and I don't have to research or do whatever, because they're not informed, right? Not everyone goes and like reads every post and gets to know those candidates. Like, no, the voting starts. Who are the best guys? And then they follow the guy they trust. In that case, it's you. And if you're number one, they're like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm voting for you. But a lot of them might have also gone saying, oh well, yes, I'm voting Killah Bee number one, but I know about this dude. Did you see the video, the whaler? I'm gonna put him number two. Or, I put him number one because Killah Bee is getting on anyway. You know what I mean? That happened a lot, I would think, and that's probably why he got all those votes on top of it, because a lot of people still think like, yeah, I know this guy. Like, they only have seen a video and maybe an interview or something, but he got himself out there, and people actually had a chance of getting to know the guy. Most of those candidates, nobody knows really, beside their own guys. It's not even that they want to vote only their guys. That's the only guys they know, right? And that's also why Brisk got those votes. They know the guy, not super well, but he puts himself out there, makes a video, and they're like, yeah, fuck yeah, I like this dude. And boom, he gets on. I mean, on top of having us as backup, backing him up from Init side. And yeah. I think like the whole voting thing, it's quite interesting, but it's not balanced. Like with the trickle down thing. They have to stop that. And yeah, I hope they approach it for the next thingy. You don't think so?
I like Red. No, I like Red Thoughts in Twitch chat. He's basically firing at shots and how Willy is the scourge of the CSM. I don't think he knows that Robert Catrix is Willy, so it's kind of funny. Whoops. Yikes. At least you can talk face to face to him now. All good.
Willy undercover. I always forgot, like, if he would have, like, Willy actually jumped on one of those, and I didn't know it was Willy either. And we were talking about Willy at the time.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure out as well, but there was like this one, I don't remember, I think it was a TIS that I was on with Willy, and he basically responded with that Twitch name all the time, so I remembered it. Yeah, it's difficult. The whole CSM topic is, I don't know, it's hard, because it comes down again. Technically, they could probably rework the way the CSM voting works, but are they going to spend any resources on it? I don't know. There's probably higher priorities in it. It's with the limited resources and manpower that CCP has, it's all about prioritizing what are the biggest problems in EVE. And unfortunately, from my point of view, the management of CCP and the player base of EVE has a very different opinion on what the priority needs to be. Hopefully that's being worked on by our current representatives.
But from a dev time point of view, we talked about it before, dev time is the big currency for them.
Yeah.
Like the CSM voting system, to rework that shouldn't be all that much work. It should be fairly easy to do. And that should give you a better CSM, better feedback, so you can make better decisions and get a better game, and you make more money, and then you can, have more devs, therefore more dev time, therefore, it goes around and on. So I think that's probably from a dev time efficiency point of view, that's probably the best change they can make, because it doesn't take much to change, but you can get a lot out of it. And yeah, let's see. So we talked about the current direction of the game. Do you have anything you think they have to do in this year, like let's say 2020, like if
I
they
have no
don't,
idea what's on their roadmap at all. Like,
do they have a
I
roadmap?
hope, yeah, they have a roadmap. I don't know what's on it, so I don't really know what's gonna happen. What I think needs to happen. I mean, we kind of talked about it already, right? But I also have a feeling that that's not gonna happen. I just hope that in sooner than later, the subcap meta is gonna change a bit. I'm kind of tired of Munins. I want something else to be good. I really wish that trick ships would be good in a larger scale as well.
Yeah,
Likely not gonna happen, but because of the spool up, the way the
well,
spool up work, they're just not very good because
I
subcap
wouldn't
fights
even,
are basically all about alpha, right?
so I wouldn't even say the spool up is necessarily the big issue. I would say the range is a big issue, because you're getting outranged by almost everything, while you're most likely gonna be armor tanked if you're gonna go for EHP. Um, and then so they can dictate range and they outrange you. That's always a bad combo, right? So I think that's probably the main issue. On top of the spool up, how it works, they have so much DPS, even non-spooled. That's quite nice. And if you have critical mass, you might not alpha stuff, but the cycle time is low enough to two-shot stuff. So I would argue it's probably more the range and the speed of the trick ships that's kind of in the way of using them big scale. Maybe it's a combination. It probably is. Um, and like so I asked, and I think I asked it the second time, about the change that you know you're really looking for, is also because like FanFest is coming around, and I'm gonna be there. Are you gonna be there? Probably
No,
not.
no,
No.
yeah, I'm currently on some kind of like a work deployment. I'm not part of the military, but I've been moved to a different city to work on something here, and it's gonna be until late March, and then I'm just gonna move back to my normal workplace in early April, and I'm gonna be settling back in, so I probably won't have the time to go to
Yeah,
FanFest.
but
It's a really, really good time. Is it your first FanFest you're going to?
yeah, it's like my first ever. I was in London, but it's a way smaller event, and I knew that coming in. I was just going there because like meeting up with like Hai and Kenda and so on, and
So my
Shines.
number one like tip for you is like the recommendation is do not go to too many roundtables or like obviously you go to the opening ceremony, you go to the
Yeah,
keynote, and then you go like if there's like somebody from your alliance having a talk that you want to support. We usually had somebody from PL or NC have a presentation, and I obviously all went to support them. But apart from that, don't go to any of the sessions. Just hang out with your friends,
why
get
not? What
drunk every
happens?
day.
What
Well,
happens on those sessions?
it's a waste of time because you get a TLDR of the session literally 5 minutes after it happened on Reddit, anyways. So why would you spend an hour sitting in it when you can get all the important information on Reddit 10 minutes later? And instead of sitting an hour in a huge room where you're not allowed to drink, you may as well be out with your friends drinking beer and having fun. Like the FanFest is all about meeting the people that you
Yeah,
play the game with every day and putting a face to the name and just having a good time. My first FanFest I went to in 2016 was one of the best times of my life. Like unironically, it was just so fun meeting all the PL people for the first time. We had a dinner. It was just so much fun. And the Eve sessions and events, the talks that they do, obviously they can be cool as well. If you want to calm down, if you're like hammered, like so, for example, I had one day at the Eve Fan Fest where I think I was like drunk at like 11 a.m. right, and I was like, shit, I need to calm down, otherwise I'm not gonna make it through the day. So I went and sat in one of the sessions for 1 hour just to sort of calm down and let the alcohol drop down a bit and have some water, right? And then I went back out and I continued with the day. But that's that's how I did it. Other than that, it's kind of rough. Obviously, if you don't drink alcohol, I'm not saying you can only have fun with alcohol at FanFest. If you don't drink alcohol, then you can still have fun just meeting all the people. But you can't really talk to the people and hang out with them inside those CSM, not CSM, Eve talks, right? Because you're
Yeah.
kind of quiet.
Yeah, I can imagine those roundtables are also like, there's probably gonna be people that take themselves a little bit too serious, and then, I don't know, some high stake guy sitting there and then have like grand ideas, and you're just sitting there listening to something. It just takes ages, I don't know. But I would probably pick one of those roundtables and just, to get an idea what it is like.
Yeah,
But
you
yeah.
should. Like I went for my first Eve FanFest, I went to some of the roundtables as well, but then I realized that it was kind of meh, and I just went. The problem as well is that, and I don't, no offense, okay, no offense to some people that might feel offended now, but the problem with the FanFest as well is that there's so many pubbies, like so many people that just have no clue about the game there, that ask really, really stupid questions
Yeah,
every
that's what I
time
mean.
at the end of these talks. Like you have this talk about balancing, right? And then some guy just asked the most stupid question. You're like, oh my god. But CCP obviously can't say that, right? They have to respond to the question seriously. And that was the point where I realized, okay, now I'm leaving. I'm not going
Yeah.
to listen to 20 stupid ass questions and then CCP giving the answer to it. So I just left.
Yeah, I can imagine also, like, I feel like, so I was in London, and that was the end of the whole world tour. And I felt sorry for the CCP guys to a degree. I could tell these guys are exhausted from this whole thing. And then also, from what I heard, they had issues with the venue, that they couldn't move in as fast as they wanted to. They couldn't build all the thingies up on the day before, so they had to do it all early in the morning. And also getting cornered for like this world tour, getting cornered about like some weird ideas. I'm definitely not gonna do that to any CCP guys and like, "Oh, you have to change this and this is the right," like, no, that's not the way to go. And I think a couple of people probably go to FanFests in with that in mind, saying like, "Oh yeah, I finally can talk to the dev and give him like my idea and whatever." I don't
Yeah,
think
see, the
that's
funny
the
thing is
thing.
that, like, at my first FanFest, I was actually approached by a dev. And then he asked me, what do you think about that? Do you think that is a good idea?
That's a good
So
that's a good thing.
that's
Yeah.
that way you at least know that they want to actually hear you answer, right? So maybe you should just make sure that it says your name somewhere very that way I can see them so they actually recognize you. Because believe it or not, CCP devs do know the high profile FCs of the game. Like there's this one really awkward story, and I don't want to gloat, okay? So please, again, don't
Do
take it
it.
the wrong way. But
Awkward
there was
stories are the
there was
best.
a really awkward story where that was my first CSM summit, and we went to the CCP dinner, which is basically a dinner that we go to at the last evening, which CCP pays for, and we can get super wasted, super hammered, and so we went to that dinner. We had the dinner. We all drank a lot of cocktails. We were all pretty wasted, and after the dinner, we were walking back into the city to go to some bar, and a CCP dev came up to me and was like, "Hey, Killah, I've been meaning to talk to you for a long time, but I was just too scared to talk to you." And I was like, "What? How? Why? I'm a nerd. I spend 16 hours a day. Luckily, I don't do that anymore, but I used to spend 16 hours a day playing your game, and I have made nothing with my life so far." That was like 2 years ago, right? Like I've accomplished nothing in my life. All I did was play your game. How can you be scared of me?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, yeah, I read all these articles about you and I saw all these YouTube videos, blah, blah, blah. I was like, come on, bro. And I just hugged him and we went and we had a bunch of more drinks at the bar. And, it was a super good time. And that was like so awkward for me because I was like, how is that even possible? How can CCP people be intimidated by the players? Like that just blew my mind, basically, right?
Well, I mean, that's not a negative thing though in this case, right?
No, it's obviously not negative, but I just really I felt so bad, right?
But
I
it
kind of
shows the
wanted to just
respect. I
hug the
mean,
guy and be like,
I know, but it shows the respect, at least, that the guys at CCP have for people that actually make the content go this game. I feel like us FCs. I mean, Aerith might disagree. Aerith might think the mining is the content creation right there. But yeah, there's a lot of work involved in that, and I think it's good that they recognize that, you know. And then in this case, it was a little bit awkward, but that's kind of cute, isn't it?
yeah, it was super cute. I was
Yeah.
just overwhelmed by it. Obviously, I was really drunk as well, so I kind of just I just kind of hugged the guy and was like, "Come on, bro, we're gonna have a good time." And we just went and got wasted. Can't remember the rest of the night, so yes,
Yeah,
don't
I'm
know what
also.
happened.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to FanFest with exactly your approach actually. Like that's what I expect anyway. Like I'm not going there for like the big CCP like event necessarily. I mean, it's a little bit bigger and expect a little bit of that, but it's for like to meet the guys and stuff like this. And I feel like I've put in so much time in this game. Like I have to see FanFest at least once. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. One tip: do not go like so. The way that they did pub crawl the last time I went to FanFest was with like you would divide it up into groups, and then you would drive around in a bus and go to different places because all the nerds at the same bar at the same time just didn't fit, right? In Reykjavik in the bars, it was just too many people.
Hmm.
So they would basically drive around the city to different bars so that there was like different groups of people. And I was on a bus with ProGod, with like 2 dudes from NC, and then like 90% people from Snuff, right? And it was
That's a good time.
so hilarious because I stole all their beer. Each of us got like a small 0.33 liter can of beer. And I was like, what the fuck is this? It's like a small beer. I'm gonna have this finished in like 2 minutes. Then I went around and stole other people's beer just for fun. And then people realized that I had all the beer. And then they obviously, they started stealing the beer back. And at the end of the day, some dude gave me a bottle of Brennivin, which is like the Icelandic liquor that they make over there. It's super disgusting. And it's like vodka, right? It has like 30 something percent, I think 37 or 40 something. And he handed me this like half bottle of Brennivin. And he gave it to me and it was like, you stole all our beer. Now you have to chug this bottle of Brennivin and just empty it. And obviously the whole bus started chanting, chug, 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 chug. And I
Oh
obviously,
yeah.
peer pressure, right? There was peer pressure. So I had no choice. So I emptied the whole bottle of, or the half the bottle of Brennivin. And there's not many things that I remember of that night. There's a horse, definitely, because there was a bar that's inside like a barn, and there was a pony. And I really wanted to ride the pony, but obviously we weren't allowed to ride the pony. I tried to climb over the fence, and people had to pull me back. Like there's lots of photos of me groping the pony, basically. And then
The pony groper.
yeah, and
That should
then
be the meme.
and then apparently there was a guy that we went from there. We went to the last bar. There's like a bar below the CCP offices, below these old CCP offices, and I didn't make it into the bar. The security wouldn't let me, and I just passed out in the gutter. Like I basically left off the door of that bar. I just kind of fell into the street and passed out. And then a couple hours later, some dude who knew luckily which hotel I stayed at picked me up, put me into a cab, and told the cab where to go. And then I arrived
Oh
at home.
shit.
So don't,
Stay away from the snuffles, huh?
yeah, do not go on a bus with
Life
snuff.
lesson. Life lesson number one.
Yeah. Do not go on a bus with ProGod and snuff. It's not
Yeah,
gonna end well.
I met a couple of guys from Snuff actually in London. Like Sejan, he's probably here. One of the guys. I'm not sure if maybe he was one of the guys. That would fit him so well. Like yeah. Alright, that's on my list. Stay away from snuffles. I'm gonna have like I'm probably gonna need some bodyguards now. Like oh, that's probably gonna be their mission or something.
Let me. I want to link this. What picture? Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, just link it in links and videos, and I'll put it on stream then. Yeah, Miranda's gonna be my bodyguard. I mean, she's in the military. She knows some moves. I mean, it's like you don't have the most intimidating. What do you call it? You're not the most intimidating person, probably. It's like you're probably like tiny, like a tiny girl. Not sure how much that works, but after all, they're all spaceship nerds, so I'm sure you can deal
I
with
don't have the phone. I don't have the picture of me and the pony on my phone anymore. I need to find it. Somebody
Oh,
in
damn
C.
it.
surely has it.
Alright. When you find
Actually,
it,
it might
put
be
it
on
in
my
links and
Twitter.
videos.
Let me check if it's on my Twitter.
And if you don't find it now and you find it later,
Yeah, I'll
just
link
put
it
in
later.
there.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really looking forward to FanFest. Would be awesome if you were there too. And I hope there's gonna be a lot of like other FCs and stuff like this. Maybe I'm gonna do a live FC chat with like as many FCs as I can find. And just find a spot. I'm sure Madral is gonna be there. He's gonna have the equipment, and they've been supportive with the Talk in the Stations crew. So maybe you can set something up there. I don't want to promise anything though, but it would be fun. Just to have a good time. Stay away from the snuffles. Don't do too many round tables. And yeah, it's my list then. I think I should be fine.
Yeah, you will be. It's a great time.
All right, and so we have been going for 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I usually aim for 2 hours. So if anyone has any good questions or any comment or whatever, go ahead. Now's your chance. Other than that, I would say thanks for coming on. Thanks for doing it, and yeah, was great talking to you.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It was actually really fun. Super chill. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and the guys in chat, like, thanks for the support, thanks for the subs and all that stuff. Much appreciated. I hope you understand I muted the sounds, because last time, or was it last time? I think it was. It kind of got in the way. It distracted me, and it's very like holding a conversation, like an interview kind of thing. I don't want this to be an interview, but it's like a skill, you know what I mean? And I'm still developing that one, so it was a little bit too distracting, I felt like. So I hope you understand. Yeah, tschüssli muesli. Alrighty guys, thanks a lot, and see you guys around.